Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to book reviews of Hugo award-winning novels. So, this week's novel is A Fire Upon the Deep by Vernor Vinge, which shout out to Wisconsin writers. They're fantastic. I think he lives in California now, but he was born in like Waukesha or something. And Wisconsin writers are the best writers. I'm talking to you, Zona Gale. Anyway, seriously, it's a reference nobody would ever know unless they took a college course in Wisconsin writers, which I did. So, here's to you, August Derleth. Anyway, yeah. So, the Fire Upon the Deep is, first off, we're going to talk about Vernor Vinge again, and by the way, Wikipedia taught me how to pronounce his first name and his last name. Like, I don't know how to pronounce Vernor. Oh, the burner. But Vinge was tricky because you want to be like Vinge. So, yeah, okay. Anyway, when we talk about him again, when we talk about Rainbow's End, which is fantastic. It's another good novel that we'll have a good review about. But I have to talk to you about A Fire Upon the Deep because A Fire Upon the Deep is part of a trilogy. And it's the first book in a trilogy, but it's chronologically the second. He wrote this book, he wrote a sequel to this book, and then he wrote a prequel to this book. And here's the thing, so you might think, hey, what I should do is read the prequel, and then this book, and then the book after this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Read this book. Read the sequel to this book. Don't read the prequel. I will talk about the prequel. I have huge problems with the prequel for this book. Which, I don't know if that's A Deepness in the Sky. One of them is called A Deepness in the Sky, and then another one's called, something else. They're all these kind of obscure titles that have nothing to do with anything. So, one of the things we have to talk about is the construction of the universe in which these novels take place. In this book, and in several, apparently, of his books, he has an idea called zones of thought. And the way zones of thought work is that there are 3 levels to the universe as we know it. And we're in the Earth as we know it is in a place called the slow zone. So the laws of physics as we know them apply here. But things like faster than light travel are impossible here. This is the slow zone. And then there's an area above this, and I can't remember what it's called. In that area, faster than light travel is possible. So intergalactic travel is far easier, and then above that is a place called the Beyond, and the Beyond is inhabited by beings that are godlike. They are ununderstandable to creatures below them, in areas below them. Okay? That's the thing about this. So, in his novel, humanity has moved into the second tier. And like a lot of civilizations in the second tier, they're trying to find ways to move up into the third tier. And by doing that, they've unleashed something horrific. Now, for the little back cover blurb. Fleeing a menace of galactic proportions, a spaceship crashes on an unfamiliar world, leaving the survivors, a pair of children, to the not-so-tender mercies of a medieval lupine race. Responding to the crippled ship's distress signal, a rescue mission races against time to retrieve the children and recover the weapon they need to prevent the universe from being forever changed. Against a background depicting a space-time continuum stratified into zones of thought, the author has created a rarity, a unique blend of hard science, high drama, and superb storytelling. Okay, so, yes, so what has happened is these people in the middle area, I can't remember what it's called, these humans escaping this terror that they have unleashed crash on a planet in the slow zone. And this thing that they've unleashed starts wreaking havoc, and creatures from the beyond contact people in the middle and say, listen, you have to stop this, and the only way you can stop this, the key to stopping this, is these kids. But the entire novel takes place, almost the entire novel takes place with these kids in the slow zone in this medieval world inhabited by indescribable. I'm gonna read a passage that mainly describes how these aliens function, and then we're gonna talk about that because Vinge's strength is clearly in inventing alien races. Because what he does is sublime. It is so interesting. All right, so let's see if we can get this. For a long time, she pretended delirium. She moaned, she twisted, she watched. The boat hulls were long and narrow, almost like canoes. The sail was mounted between them. The shadow in her dreams had been that sail, snapping in the cold, clean wind. The sky was an avalanche of grays, light and dark. There were birds up there. They dipped past the mast, circling again and again. There was twittering and hissing all around her, but the sound did not come from the birds. It was the monsters. She watched them through lowered lashes. They were the same kind that killed Mom and Dad. They even wore the same funny clothes. Gray-green jackets studded with stirrups and pockets. Dogs or wolves, she had thought before. That didn't really describe them. Sure, they had 4 slender legs and pointy little ears, but with their long necks and occasionally reddish eyes, they might as well be huge rats. And the longer she watched them, the more horrible they seemed. A still image could never convey that horror. You had to see them in action. She watched 4 of them, the ones on her side of the boat, play with her data set. The pink Oliphant was tied in a net bag near the rear of the boat. Now the beast wanted to look it over. At first it looked like a circus act, the creature's heads darting this way and that. But every move was so precise, so coordinated with all the others. They had no hands, but they could untie knots, each holding a piece of twine in its mouth and maneuvering its neck around others. At the same time, one's claws held the loose netting tight against the railing. It was like watching puppets run off a control group, or group control. In seconds, they had it out of the bag. Dogs would have let it slide to the bottom of the hull, then pushed it around with their noses. Not these things. 2 put it onto a crossbench while a third steadied it with its paw. They poked around the edges, concentrating on the plush flanges and floppy ears. They pushed and nuzzled, but with clear purpose. They were trying to open it. 2 heads showed over the railing on the other hull. They made the gobbling, hissing sound that were a cross between a bird call and someone throwing up. One of those on her side glanced back and made similar sounds. The other 3 continued to play with the data set's latches. Finally, they pulled the big floppy ears simultaneously. The data set popped open, and the top window went into Joanna's startup routine. An anim of herself saying, "Shame on you, Jeffrey, stay out of my things." The 4 creatures went rigid, their eyes suddenly wide. Alright, so this planet is inhabited by dog-like creatures. We'll go with dog-like creatures that live in packs. But they live in packs in a way that share their personality. So like 3 or 4 or 5 of them will get together and they stay in very close proximity to one another. And they have like membranes that allow them to communicate kind of direct thoughts between themselves. And like I said, they refer to themselves as a pack, but they constitute a person. And these packs over time can add members or lose members. And if a pack loses too many members, then it can't function as an individual anymore. And so humans to them are the most monstrous thing of all because we're solitary. And they can't wrap their head around that. They actually get referred to as a pack of one several times because we're self-contained. And we look to them like praying mantises. They always refer us to being like, and we kind of do look like praying mantises, I suppose. So, to outsiders, they look like they're crawling all over one another, and they're communicating in such a close way that they're an individual, which then makes their society very strange because closeness becomes almost sexual for them. That if another pack gets too close, they can start hearing their thoughts and their feelings, and it becomes this weird intrusion on your individuality. Man, it's great. It's fantastic. And so throughout the course of the novel, things actually like that will happen, where packs will like lose an individual, or packs will split up, or things like that, or packs have grown too large and they'll split into two individuals, and so there's history there, and there are these kind of legendary packs that run kingdoms, and it becomes kind of the culture. Vinge is incredibly invested in the culture of these packs and kind of the world that they've created. And then on top of that, these kids crash from a mid-level, faster than light technology society into the slow zone to a society that doesn't have things like gunpowder. And so these kids actually become these unwitting valuable commodities to factions that do not agree with one another on this planet. And the kids' attitudes towards these, because there's just the two of them, their mother and father are killed very early in the story. There's a brother and a sister. And the two of them, their attitudes and dealings with these different factions and what we know about them and what the kids don't know and things like that play off very well. This book is long. It's not a hard read. Vinge's style is light, so you can kind of blow through it. Once you really start wrapping your head around the fact that when somebody says like Rick Rack Fangscar or something, you're like, oh, that's four entities involved in an individual, like that they're sharing a thing, right? So once you get your head wrapped around that, the book is actually kind of delightful in its playing around with its alien cultures. And Vinge, he does this in the one of the things that actually is good about the prequel when we talk about that is the aliens that he creates. But in this book and the sequel, they figure very heavily. It's all about these dog-like creatures, and they're great. I mean, again, if that's the conception, like that's the thing is we talked last week about the city and the city and how the two cities was this concept that you really wanted to play around with in your head. Well, in this book, the concept is these pack animals that are an individual, that they're a pack that is a person, and that by disrupting the pack, you change the individual and can even destroy them. It's great. Vinge does that really well, and the story is fantastic. The story is very good. Like everything that kind of goes on, it's very good. The characters that you meet from the middle level who are going to save these children, it's fantastic. Kind of the things that are happening with this power that is disrupting things is very sinister and very kind of unexplained. And then the kids and kind of how they're getting along with these animals, these aliens, is amazing. Really, the meat of the story you love having told, is these kids being integrated into a medieval society of dogs. Like, just it's great. It's great. This is completely worth the read. So this tied. I'm reasonably sure with Connie Willis's Doomsday book for the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1993. So what was I doing in 1993? I believe I was in 8th grade. Yeah, I was in 8th grade. This book came out. And I didn't read it for 20 more years. Something like that. Wait. That can't be. 20 more years. 2013, I didn't read for like 25 more years. Yes! So, another book that I really find delightful. I love. I liked it a lot. I liked it so much I read the sequel and the prequel. So yes, Vernor Vinge, Fire Upon the Deep, Hugo Award winner, 1993, tied, but still a winner. So this book is available wherever fine books are sold, and probably in some places where really scuzzy books you'd never want to read are sold. There's sometimes there's a diamond in the rough. Or you can come to my house and break in and steal my copies. Please don't do that. Please do not somehow figure out where I live and come to my house and break in and take my books, because they're all I have. My books are all I have. I mean, well, it's video game systems and people who love me and my health and things. I have a lot. I'm a pretty lucky guy. Anyway, so just order it. Just buy it for $4 online and save yourself the felony conviction. So I will see you guys for some other book. I have to really look at what we're going to do next and pick up some passages and stuff like that, but I'll see you for that. Bye, everybody.